Let's go on an artist date.
Do you want to go for a walk? Should we go for walkies? Yeah?
Yes! When I first did the Artist Way, I remember planning these really elaborate artist dates, like these huge days out, these really making an effort with them. And as much as I love to do that, and best believe I have some really amazing artist dates planned for myself, the trick to make this a sustainable thing that you do ongoing, where you continually make space for your own inspiration and filling your own tank, is to make it sustainable, make it something that's really achievable to do. And so right now, me and Vivian are doing one of my favourite things to do as an artist date, a little walk by the lake. Honestly, it's really the simple things in life that make it great, right?
Good visuals, good life, just all that matters. Health that you got right there is all that matters. Saving, stacking up, yeah, all that matters. Good time with the gang, yeah, all that matters. Yeah, good visuals, good life, just all there is all that matters. Saving,
Something that I've really noticed, especially since I've been doing morning pages, is that morning pages are most often a great place for me to rant and talk about the things that, you know, I want a space to talk about. But what I think is also equally, maybe even more important, is having a space to write about positive things and things that I'm excited about. And so I like to have some time, at least once a week, where I'm purposefully sitting down to journal and I'm being positive. I'm talking about the good things, the things that I want to create, the things that I'm excited about. So that's what I'm doing now. It's week 2 and we are recovering a sense of identity. Miss Julia kind of goes in on us on this section in the most loving and caring way. I love this part where she opens the chapter saying, trusting our creativity is new behavior for many of us. And so much about this chapter is how we let other people's ideas and beliefs and concepts of ourselves kind of color the way that we see ourselves, or at least the way we let ourselves see ourselves. And just how important it is, especially when we're going through a time of transformation and healing and having a safe space for our creativity, just how important it is to be really mindful of whose opinions we let in and how vulnerable we let ourselves be when we are doing something different, when we're putting ourselves in new situations and allowing ourselves to explore, you know, these really vulnerable parts of ourselves through our creativity, and being really sensitive to our little tiny inner baby artist. It's our job to ultimately take care of ourselves and make sure that we're in the circumstances that help us thrive. So she opens the chapter talking about how as we gain strength, so will some of the attacks of self-doubt. And I've definitely been experiencing this as I've been going through the program and making more space for creativity in my life. Like, as much as I'm opening myself up for new ideas and the potential to go to new levels with my creativity and my expression, it's as if our self-doubt see that as a challenge and are like, oh, okay, you want to do things a bit different, you want to expand out into bigger space, I am gonna test how much you back yourself with that. I'm gonna test how much you actually believe you're capable of that, by kind of putting you through the ringer and putting your self-doubt in a bit of a spin. Julie reminds us that this is normal. We can deal with these stronger attacks when we see them as symptoms of recovery. It's when we buy into these attacks of self-doubt and we're like, oh, that's the truth, that is the real thing. What I've been trying to think, what I've been trying to believe is just a mirage, and it's never going to be the reality I live. And instead, it's the self-doubt that is true and that holds precedent over us. Buying into our doubts is how we remain stuck. There's a big relationship between self-doubt and self-sabotage, and it's kind of makes it very clear on these pages that it's our job, it's nobody else's job to take us away from self-doubt and self-sabotage. The responsibility lies on us as the creator, as the artist. The bulk of this chapter is around poisonous playmates and kind of friendships and relationships, and being purposeful about the boundaries you hold with other people in your life, and being sensitive and really prioritizing your own needs and yourself, especially in these times of growth and healing and recovering your creative self. Personally, I think we need to take anything around blocking people off, cutting people off with a grain of salt. And I don't want to go too much into it on this video because there's a lot that's said around like what boundaries you should have in your life online, and I think it's so specific and it's so personal, and I don't want my stories or what I believe about this to kind of color the decisions that you make in your life. I think we don't need everybody around us to be a quote-unquote healed person by our own definition in order for us to grow, but I do think there's something to be said about building the skills of self-value and self-worth, and being able to take what people say with a grain of salt and understand if somebody doesn't have the life that you want and haven't achieved the goals you want to achieve, then you don't actually have to pay attention to them. This part of the book is kind of contradictory to the imagining fantasy lives thing that I did as one of my activities last week, but I love it, and I think it's really pivotal in terms of completing projects and creating the things that you ultimately want to create. And it's on the topic of attention. Julia says a creative block manifests itself as an addiction to fantasy. Rather than working or living the now, we spin our wheels and indulge in daydreams of could have, would have, should have. I mean, she told her to do that last week, so like there's a time and place for it. One of the great misconceptions about the artistic life is that it entails great swaths of aimlessness. The truth is that a creative life involves great swaths of attention. Swaths is an amazing and ridiculous word. I love this. I think it's so important, especially as our attention spans seemingly get smaller. We're told constantly our attention spans are getting smaller. I don't necessarily believe that that's true, and I kind of reject that notion, but still, no matter what time and age you are living in, how you choose to direct your attention completely transforms your life. The things you pay attention to, the things you basically put value on by how much time you allot to that thing, means that you're probably going to get results in the areas you give the most attention to. It's just logical. And so when it comes to our creativity, the experience you want to get depends on where you put your attention. And there's this quote by Henry Miller in the book that I think is just beautiful. Develop interest in life as you see it. In people, things, literature, music. The world is so rich, simply throbbing with rich treasures, beautiful souls, and interesting people. Forget yourself. And can we just... What is happening? Are you right? Are you okay? The book explains that the reward for attention is always healing, because attention is an act of connection, and we can be really busy in our lives. We can be dancing our attention around from one thing to the next, but when we sit down to create something, we really sit down to actively pay attention at one thing, to direct our focus and direct our attention. And when we're able to do that, we absorb something much more deeply than we would, you know, at times when we're just bouncing around from this thing and that thing. We kind of get this hazy view of the world. And in the book, Julia describes how her grandmother would send her these letters where there's chaos going on in her personal life, but she's able to find so much beauty in the world around her. She notices how the flowers change with the seasons, how nature interacts with the world around her, and in that she sees beauty regardless of her relationship, her financial situation, her family situations, all of this chaos that can happen in our lives. But the gift of healing and satisfaction and beauty that we can find when we choose to focus our attention where we want to, where it feels good. And to me, this really seems like the foundation of how creativity in itself is such a healing process, choosing to focus our time and our energy on the projects that interest us, the ideas that we're like, no one's telling me to do this thing, no one's saying that this is a thing I have to do to be a functioning human in society, but I feel really interested in this idea, and so I'm going to allow myself to focus a good chunk of my attention onto it and really soak into that thing. And I've learned so much about myself through focusing my attention on these projects and, you know, ultimately aspects of myself that I want to explore. And in that, I see so much beauty. I see there's so much that I have to explore and so much that I have to enjoy. And instead of, you know, looking outside of myself and always wishing that things would be different, or seeing that there's a better option and all, you know, everything that life could be, when I choose to create with what I have, whether it's the skills that I have, the resources that I have, the time that I have, choosing to focus my attention on everything that I have right now feels like the biggest act of self-love and self-care for myself, because it allows me to actually be present in my life and to actually enjoy my life, get satisfaction from what I have right now. There's this section where there are rules of the road, sort of like affirmations. She likes to do these at the end of the chapters, and there's one in particular that I highlighted because I just think it's beautiful. And it says, remember that it is far harder and more painful to be a blocked artist than it is to do the work. I can make so many excuses of why I'm too busy or why today's not the day and I should focus on doing all of these other important things instead. But that's really just a lot of busy work to stop myself from doing the thing that I really want to do, which is usually sit down and make something, to create something, to read something. Sometimes it can feel sticky to get started. It can feel tough to come up, you know, face to face with your ideas, with your current skill level, if you're not able to create something the way that you can see it in your mind. I know how frustrating the act of creating can be. The thing that's more frustrating is when I keep my ideas inside my head only as ideas, and I restrict myself to just fantasizing about this thing and letting it seem like it's something that's distant from me and that I can't have and experience right now. Whereas when I let myself just face up to the frustration that can arise with starting something new, then it doesn't take long to get over that hurdle. It doesn't take long to start to get into the swing of things and start enjoying them. Literally just a couple of weeks ago when I decided to start making videos again, I downloaded Premiere Pro, and I'd always been a very simple iMovie gal, but I don't know, it's limited, you can't do all the things. So I was like, it's time to level it up, it's time to get Premiere Pro. Let me tell you how frustrating that was. Like, wanting to rip my eyeballs out, wanting to just scream and cry for a good couple of hours of just figuring out the initial, you know, my way around the program. Now it feels so exciting. Now I'm like, I'm learning things, I'm figuring things out still. I've got so much to learn and figure out on it, so much. But I understand the basic layout. I understand how to do the basic stuff, and already it feels so much easier, and already that pain of starting something, it's so much more minimized because I feel myself in flow and I feel myself in momentum of creating the thing and learning the thing, and I feel my abilities to edit and to film get better with each thing that I create. It's showing up, it's doing the work, and that feels so much better than letting myself have the fantasy but be stuck, be blocked with only the fantasy. Give me the reality that I can sink my teeth into instead. I have a confession to make. I missed a day of morning pages this week, and I never write my morning pages in the morning. I was talking about this with my friend Morgan, who was asking me like, do I have to do my morning pages first thing in the morning? And I'm pretty sure Julia Cameron says in the book, yes. But I very rarely / never write my morning pages first thing when I wake up. I prefer to like start my day and like do something. For me, like sitting down the first thing when I wake up just doesn't feel right, does not work for me. So I'll usually walk Vivian, or I'll go to Pilates and come home, and when I'm having my smoothie, I'll write my morning pages. And I think the thing here is that we can follow these guidelines of something, but I think nothing is ever a rule. Nothing is set in stone. Everything is open to your own interpretation. And the best way for you to do something is the way for you to do it sustainably. And for me, if I held myself up to, you know, I have to do my morning pages first thing when I wake up, I would have done that not very often and I would have failed. Instead, if I allow myself to do them at a time that feels more suitable for me, then I'm able to really enjoy it. And I find that the act of doing it repeatedly, day after day, is where I get my benefit, not necessarily the time of day that I'm doing them. So if you're doing the artist way, let yourself experiment and find the way of things that work for you. This is about being honest with yourself, of not bullshitting yourself and letting yourself cut corners and avoid the things that you know would be helpful, but you just go like, oh no, it doesn't work for me, so you can not do it. This isn't about that. This is about doing the things that work really well for you in the ways that work best for you, and understanding that you have the creative freedom to make decisions on what works best for you and to follow them, because ultimately this is your life, this is your game, and your goal is to unlock your own creativity in a way that is expansive but also sustainable. My battery's running out. I've got a Pilates class to go to. I've got a sweet potato in the oven. This was a quick and snappy one. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment below and let me know how you are going, and I will speak to you in the next one. Bye.